My husband spent 18 months planning his perfect escape into a new life. He forgot that for every transaction, for every lie, for every betrayal, I had the receipts. It took him a year and a half to build his fantasy. It took me 6 weeks to burn it to the ground. That if you have ever been underestimated, if you have ever been made to feel like a supporting character in your own life, then you are going to feel this story in your bones. Do me a favor and hit that subscribe button, because today's story is a masterclass in turning pain into power, and proving that the quietest person in the room is often the one you should fear the most. Let's get into it. Part 1, The Crack in the Porcelain. Our life, from the outside, was a curated masterpiece. We lived in a beautifully restored Craftsman in Portland's Laurelhurst neighborhood. We had 2 daughters, Zora, our thoughtful, perceptive 8-year-old, and Willa, our 5-year-old whirlwind of glitter and chaos. My husband, Conrad, was the charismatic founder of a boutique marketing analytics startup, a man who looked like he was born wearing expensive selvage denim and a confident smirk. And I was Clara, the freelance graphic designer, the stay-at-home mom who also managed to build a respectable career during nap times and after the girls were asleep. We were the couple you'd see at the farmer's market, him with a ridiculously complex pour-over coffee, me with a canvas tote full of organic kale, both of us smiling. It was a perfect picture. But pictures are flat, and our life had no depth. It was a beautiful, hollow, porcelain shell. For the last 2 years, our conversations had become purely logistical. Did you remember Zora's soccer registration? Can you pick up the dry cleaning? My investors are coming into town, we need to have that dinner party on Thursday. I was the household COO, the stage manager for the grand performance of Conrad's life. He would talk for hours about seed rounds, user acquisition funnels, and the precise flavor notes of his single-origin Ethiopian coffee, often correcting my palate when I said it just tasted like, well, coffee. He posted photos of us on Instagram with captions full of empty superlatives, my amazing wife, the rock of our family. While in reality, he hadn't asked me a meaningful question about my own life in months. I had become a set piece, a decorative and functional part of his aspirational brand. I knew something was wrong. It wasn't a sudden realization, but a slow, creeping frost. It was the way his phone was always angled away from me. The late nights at the office, that increased in frequency while his company's actual output seemed to stagnate. The new, expensive cycling gear he bought for weekend rides with a group he never invited me to join. It was 1,000 tiny paper cuts to the heart, each one too small to make a scene about, but together, they were leaving me to bleed out slowly. He thought I was clueless, too busy packing lunches and meeting design deadlines to notice the intricate web of lies he was weaving. He underestimated me. That was his first, and most critical, mistake. The proof arrived on a Thursday afternoon in September. A perfectly ordinary, sun-drenched Portland day. I was driving home from a client meeting, taking a detour through the Alphabet District to avoid some traffic on Burnside. And that's when I saw him. His stupid, expensive bicycle was chained to a post outside Stumptown Coffee. And he was sitting at one of the window tables, leaning forward, his face lit up with a kind of relaxed, genuine joy I hadn't seen directed at me in years. Across from him sat a woman. She had that effortlessly cool Portland look, long, dark hair, a vintage band t-shirt, and delicate silver rings on every finger. She was laughing at something he'd said, and her hand was resting on top of his. Not a friendly pat. It was a gesture of lazy, confident intimacy. The kind of touch you don't even think about. The world didn't crash down around me. There was no screech of tires, no dramatic gasp. Instead, a strange and terrifying calm washed over me. The noise of the city, the traffic, the distant siren, the chatter from the street, it all faded into a low hum. It was as if I had been submerged in cold, clear water. My hands were steady on the steering wheel. My breathing was even. He hadn't seen me. I could have just driven away. I could have gone home and waited for him, ready for the confrontation, the screaming match, the inevitable, messy explosion of a dying marriage. But the woman who might have done that a year ago was already gone. In her place was someone else. Someone colder, clearer. I pulled over, parked my car half a block down, and walked back. I didn't storm into the café. I stood across the street, partially hidden by a newsstand, and I took out my phone. I zoomed in, my hand as steady as a surgeon's. The image was perfectly clear, him, her, their hands intertwined on the table between two artisanal lattes. Click. I took a screenshot. A perfect, high-resolution digital record of my life breaking in two. I looked at the image on my screen. It wasn't a tragedy. It was evidence. I walked back to my car, got in, and drove home. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I went inside, put the groceries away, and greeted my daughters when they got home from school. I helped Zora with her math homework. I let Willa paint my fingernails a disastrous shade of sparkly blue. I was a ghost, an automaton going through the motions of a life that was no longer real. That night, when Conrad came home, he was humming. He kissed me on the cheek, the gesture so rote and meaningless it was almost laughable. "Long day, hon," he said, dropping his messenger bag by the door. "Had to put out a few fires with the dev team." "Oh," I said, my voice unnervingly normal. "Everything okay?" Yeah, all handled," he said, already scrolling through his phone. Just another day at the office. Lying was as natural to him as breathing. And in that moment, watching him, I knew I couldn't confront him. A confrontation would give him the chance to lie more, to manipulate, to gaslight me, to make me the hysterical, emotional wife while he remained the calm, rational husband. He would control the narrative. I decided then and there that I would not give him that power. After he was asleep, snoring softly beside me in our marital bed, a new and profound kind of violation, I took my laptop into the living room. I sat in the dark, the screen's glow illuminating the silent, comfortable home we had built on a foundation of his lies. I didn't cry. I didn't rage. I made a phone call. "Sienna," I whispered when she answered, her voice thick with sleep. "It's Clara. I'm sorry to call so late." "Clara? What's wrong? Are the girls okay?" "The girls are fine," I said, my voice a flat, emotionless line. "He's cheating. I have proof." There was a pause on the other end of the line. Sienna wasn't just my oldest friend, she was the most ruthless divorce attorney in the city of Portland. I didn't hear sympathy in the silence. I heard her brilliant, calculating mind booting up. "Okay," she said finally, her voice now crisp and fully awake. "Okay, Clara. Listen to me very carefully. You will not say a single word to him. You will not change your routine. You will not let him know that you know. From this moment on, you are a data collector. You are a spy in your own home. Document everything. Every credit card statement, every weird text, every late night. And we are going to play the long game. Are you ready for that?" I looked around the dark, quiet room, at the framed photos on the wall of a family that was a fiction. A family I had to protect. "I'm ready," I said. My revenge wouldn't be a fiery explosion. It would be a quiet, meticulous demolition. And I had just picked up my first sledgehammer. Part 2, The Spy in My Own Home. The 6 weeks that followed were the longest, most surreal period of my life. I was living a double existence. On the surface, I was Clara, the devoted wife and mother. I made pancake breakfasts. I coordinated playdates. I sat across the dinner table from Conrad and listened to his self-aggrandizing stories about work, smiling and nodding in all the right places. I was an actress giving the performance of a lifetime, and the stage was my own home. But beneath the surface, a different Clara emerged. After he went to bed, or when he was out on his long, bike rides, I became a forensic investigator. My freelance design work had trained me to be meticulous, to see patterns, to organize complex information into a clear, compelling narrative. I now applied those skills to deconstructing my husband's secret life. Sienna's words echoed in my head: emotion is a liability. Data is your armor. So I built my armor, piece by painstaking piece. I started with our finances. Conrad had always handled the big picture stuff, the investments, his business accounts, while I managed the day-to-day household budget. He liked it that way. It made him feel powerful, and it kept me in the dark. He had a separate credit card for his business expenses, one I wasn't supposed to see. One night, after he fell asleep with his laptop open, I found it. The password was, pathetically, the name of his favorite obscure indie band. I opened the statements, and the cold, hard data of his betrayal scrolled down the screen. There were hotel rooms in the city, booked on nights he was supposedly working late. There were dinners for two at expensive restaurants I'd always wanted to try, places he'd claimed were overrated. There were charges from a high-end lingerie store. And then there were the flights. 2 round-trip tickets to San Diego for a weekend he told me was a grueling tech conference. I did a quick search of the woman from the coffee shop, Mirabelle Vance, a brand strategist, whose Instagram was a curated feed of sunsets and yoga poses. Her feed showed her in San Diego on that exact weekend, a smiling selfie captioned, "A magical, spontaneous getaway." Spontaneous. He had been planning this for months. Each transaction was a small, sharp sting. But I didn't let the pain consume me. I channeled it into action. I downloaded every statement. I created a spreadsheet, color-coding the fraudulent expenses. The lingerie, the hotels, the dinners, the flights. It was meticulous. It was damning. And it was just the beginning. The emotional toll of this secret war was immense. I felt like I was holding my breath all day, only able to exhale in the dead of night, hunched over my laptop. I had to fight the constant, overwhelming urge to scream at him, to throw the evidence in his smug, handsome face. There were moments when his hypocrisy was so breathtaking it almost broke my composure. One evening, he came home with a bouquet of grocery store carnations. "Just because," he said, smiling that charming smile that used to make my knees weak and now just made my stomach turn. He was trying to placate me, to keep the little wife happy and unsuspecting while he built his exit strategy. I wanted to smash the vase over his head. Instead, I smiled, my face feeling like a porcelain mask that might crack at any moment. "They're lovely, honey," I said, my voice a perfect imitation of my former self. "I'll put them in water." The hardest part, by far, was the kids. Conrad had started to use our oldest, Zora, as a pawn in his sick game. He was poisoning her, turning her into his unwitting accomplice. One Saturday, he told me he was taking Zora out for a special daddy-daughter day. They were gone for hours. When they came back, Zora was unusually quiet. That night, as I was tucking her into bed, she looked at me with her big, serious eyes. "Mommy," she whispered, "is it okay to have secrets?" A cold dread washed over me. "What kind of secrets, sweetie?" "Daddy said that we saw his work friend Mirabelle today," she said, her little brow furrowed with confusion. "He bought her a present. He said it was a secret, just for us, and that we shouldn't tell you because you get worried about his work stuff." I felt the air leave my lungs. The rage that filled me was white-hot, silent, and absolute. He wasn't just lying to me. He was teaching our daughter to lie. He was using her innocence as a shield. He was forcing her to carry the burden of his deceit. In that moment, any lingering shred of doubt, any thought of reconciliation, any wisp of the love I once had for him, was incinerated. This wasn't just about infidelity anymore. This was about protecting my children from the moral rot of their own father. I hugged Zora tightly, my heart aching for her. "It's never a good secret if you have to hide it from someone you love, baby," I told her, my voice shaking slightly. "You can always tell me anything. No matter what." That night, I didn't sleep. I sat at my desk, the spreadsheet glowing in the dark, and I added a new tab, witness statements. I wrote down the date, the time, and Zora's exact words. It was the most painful entry I had to make, and the most important. The next day, I met Sienna at a discreet coffee shop on the other side of town. I looked haggard. Dark circles under my eyes, a tension in my jaw that wouldn't quit. I laid out everything I had found, the credit card statements, the evidence of Mirabelle's trip, the story about Zora. Sienna listened, her expression unreadable. She stirred her espresso, the tiny spoon making a soft clinking sound. When I was finished, she looked up, and her eyes were like chips of steel. "Good," she said. "This is all very good. But the financial stuff, it feels bigger than just some dinners and a weekend trip. A man like Conrad, with his ego? He's not just cheating. He's building something. An escape hatch. We need to find it." She was right. The scale of his arrogance suggested something more than a simple affair. He wasn't just planning to leave me, he was planning to leave me with nothing. Sienna gave me the name of a forensic accountant, a quiet, unassuming man named Arthur who specialized in uncovering hidden assets in messy divorces. The cost was substantial, but it was an investment in my future, in my daughter's future. I met with Arthur, armed with my spreadsheet and a folder of documents. He looked over my work, a small, appreciative smile on his face. "You've done most of the work for me, Mrs. Davies," he said. "You have a good mind for this." He was the first person in years who had seen my intelligence as a tool, not just a support system for someone else's ambition. For the next 2 weeks, Arthur dug. And what he found was worse than I could have imagined. Conrad hadn't just been spending our money on his mistress. He had been systematically siphoning it away. He had created a secret LLC, a shell company with a generic name. Over the past 18 months, he had funneled over $73,000 of marital assets into it. Money from our joint savings. Funds from a home equity line of credit I didn't even know he had opened. He was building a nest egg for his new life with Mirabelle, using the financial foundation of the family he was planning to abandon. But that wasn't all. He had been underreporting his income to the IRS for the past 2 years, hiding consulting fees and bonuses in the LLC's account to lower his tax burden, and, no doubt, his future child support obligations. He wasn't just a cheater and a liar. He was a criminal. He was committing tax fraud. The final piece of the puzzle clicked into place. This wasn't just a divorce. This was a war for my survival. He thought he was the master strategist, quietly moving his pieces across the board, preparing for a swift, decisive victory. He had no idea that I could see the whole board. He had no idea that I was about to flip it over. The binder of evidence was growing, getting heavier each day, thick with the weight of his lies and my righteous, patient fury. And the court date was looming. Part 3, The Architecture of War. The 6 weeks of my secret investigation felt like a lifetime, but it was also a crucible that forged a new version of myself. The soft, accommodating Clara was gone, burned away by the acid of betrayal and the cold fire of resolve. In her place was an architect. While Conrad was designing his escape, I was designing his downfall, and my blueprints were far more detailed. My home office, once a cheerful space filled with color swatches and design proofs, became my war room. I bought a large whiteboard and mapped out Conrad's network of lies like a general planning a campaign. There were timelines, flowcharts of money transfers, and a list of key players. It was the most important project of my life, and I gave it all the focus and creativity I had once poured into building a life with him. The binder was my central weapon. It wasn't just a collection of papers, it was a narrative, a story told through receipts, statements, and screenshots. Sienna had coached me on how to organize it for maximum impact. It was divided into 5 sections, each with a clear, damning title. Section 1, The Affair. This was the emotional heart of the case. It started with the high-resolution photo of Conrad and Mirabelle in the coffee shop. It included printouts of her social media posts from their spontaneous getaway, cross-referenced with his credit card statements showing the flights and hotel he paid for. There were receipts for gifts, a $1,200 necklace from a boutique jewelry store, lingerie, expensive dinners, all meticulously dated and highlighted. It painted a picture not of a fleeting mistake, but of a sustained, calculated, and expensive parallel life. Section 2, Financial Malfeasance. This was the work of Arthur, the forensic accountant, and it was the densest, most devastating part of the binder. It contained the LLC formation documents, a detailed trace of the $73,000 in diverted marital assets, and bank statements from the secret account. Arthur had created a series of beautiful, easy-to-read charts that even a non-financial expert like a judge could understand in seconds. It showed the money flowing out of our joint accounts and into his personal slush fund. It was a cold, mathematical portrait of a thief. Section 3, Tax Fraud. This section was thin but potent. It contained his official, filed tax returns for the past 2 years, alongside the bank statements from the LLC that showed the income he had failed to report. Arthur had included a cover letter explaining, in calm, professional language, that Conrad had likely defrauded the United States government of a significant amount of money. Sienna had called this section the kill shot. Section 4, Deception and Manipulation of a Minor. This was the section I hated and needed the most. It contained my signed, notarized affidavit detailing the conversation with Zora. It described how Conrad had coached our 8-year-old daughter to lie to her own mother, to become an accessory to his affair. This wasn't about money or sex. This was about his fundamental character, his fitness as a father. Section 5, Fraudulent Business Expenses. This was an unexpected bonus. While tracking his credit cards, I noticed a pattern of odd charges on his corporate card from his previous employer, a large tech firm he'd left to start his own company. On a hunch, I contacted a friend who still worked there, in HR. I was vague, just saying I was doing some financial planning and was trying to track down some old expense reports. My friend, sensing trouble, did some digging. It turned out Conrad had charged over $30,000 in personal expenses, including a down payment on his precious new bicycle and several client dinners that were actually dates with Mirabelle, to the company in his last year there. He had never been caught. I included the statements, highlighting the personal items. It was another layer of his pathological deceit. Assembling the binder was a grimly satisfying ritual. With every page I hole punched, with every tab I labeled, I felt a piece of my power returning. The binder grew to be 3 inches thick, a heavy, tangible object. It felt like the truth. It felt like justice. All the while, I had to maintain the illusion of our normal life. It was a high-wire act of emotional suppression. Conrad was becoming more brazen, more confident that his plan was working. He started talking about the future in vague, ominous terms. "You know, Clara," he said one night as we were washing dishes, "I've been thinking. Maybe we need a change. Life has gotten so predictable." I just wanted to scream, "Your life is anything but predictable, you lying sociopath." Instead, I dried a plate with methodical calm and said, "What kind of change were you thinking?" "I don't know," he said, waving a hand dismissively. "Something more. I feel like I'm meant for more than just this." He gestured around our warm, beautiful kitchen, at the life I had worked so hard to build, as if it were a prison. The condescension, the sheer ingratitude of it all, was staggering. He thought he was laying the philosophical groundwork for his departure. He thought he was being deep. In reality, he was just handing me more fuel for the fire. The week before the preliminary hearing, he finally made his move. He sat me down on the living room sofa, his face arranged in a mask of solemn sincerity. It was a look he had probably practiced in the mirror. "Clara," he began, taking my hand. His felt cold and clammy. "This is hard to say, but I think we've grown apart. I haven't been happy for a long time. I think we need to separate." I had been waiting for this moment for 6 weeks. I had rehearsed it in my mind 100 times. I did not cry. I did not beg. I did not get angry. I looked at him, my expression one of quiet, believable heartbreak. I pulled my hand away gently. I see," I whispered. I guess I knew this was coming. My quiet acceptance completely disarmed him. He had been prepared for a fight, for drama. He wasn't prepared for my calm resignation. It made him feel powerful, magnanimous. I want this to be amicable, for the kids, he said, puffing out his chest slightly. I'll be fair. We'll split everything 50-50ths. I've already spoken to an attorney, Todd, he's a great guy, he says we can get this done quickly and quietly. 50-50, I thought. 50% of what you haven't already stolen. Okay, Conrad, I said, my voice barely audible. Whatever you think is best. He left the next day, moving into a sleek, furnished apartment in the Pearl District that I knew, from my research, he had leased 3 months prior. He thought he had executed his plan flawlessly. He had secured his new life, his new woman, and his stolen nest egg. He had left the little wife behind, expecting her to roll over and accept whatever scraps he threw her way. He had no idea that I wasn't behind him. I was miles ahead, waiting for him at the finish line with a 3-inch binder of pure, unadulterated truth. The preliminary hearing was in 5 days. He thought it was a formality. A simple first step in an amicable dissolution. He thought he was walking into a negotiation. He was walking into an ambush. And I was finally ready to spring the trap. Part 4, The Verdict and the Vanquished. The morning of the hearing, the air was crisp and cold. I chose my outfit with the care of a warrior preparing for battle, a simple, impeccably tailored black suit, low heels, and minimal makeup. I wanted to look serious, credible, and completely in control. I left the girls with my parents, giving them both a hug that lasted a little longer than usual. This was the day I fought for their future. I met Sienna in the lobby of the county courthouse. She gave me a single, firm nod. Ready? Ready, I said. The knot of anxiety that had lived in my stomach for 6 weeks was gone, replaced by an icy calm. We walked into the courtroom. It was smaller than I'd imagined, all polished wood and fluorescent lighting. Conrad was already there, sitting beside his attorney, Todd. Todd was exactly as I'd pictured, a slick, 40-something man with a carefully sculpted goatee and a suit that was just a little too shiny. Conrad looked relaxed, almost bored. He gave me a small, condescending smile as I sat down, as if to say, let's just get this over with so I can get back to my real life. He had no idea that his real life was about to be dismantled before his very eyes. Our case was called. We approached the bench. Judge Winters was an older woman with sharp, intelligent eyes that seemed to miss nothing. She had a reputation for being tough but fair, with zero tolerance for dishonesty. Todd spoke first, his voice smooth and practiced. Your Honor, my client, Mr. Davies, and his wife, Mrs. Davies, have mutually agreed to dissolve their marriage. We're hoping for a simple, amicable process. We propose a standard 50-50 split of all known marital assets and a joint custody arrangement. The judge looked at the paperwork, then at me. Mrs. Davies, is that your understanding? Sienna stood up. Not exactly, Your Honor. Her voice was calm but carried an edge of steel that made everyone in the room sit up a little straighter. My client will not be agreeing to a 50-50 split, or to joint custody at this time. We have concerns. Todd scoffed, a little puff of arrogant air. Concerns? Your Honor, this is a simple, no-fault divorce. On the contrary, Sienna said, we believe there is a significant amount of fault. And we have evidence to that effect. And then came the moment I had been waiting for. Sienna walked to our table, picked up the 3-inch binder, and placed it on the judge's bench. It landed with a solid, definitive thump. The sound echoed in the silent courtroom. It was the sound of truth. It was the sound of a bomb dropping. Conrad's smug expression faltered for the first time. He stared at the binder, a flicker of confusion in his eyes. Todd looked annoyed, as if we were wasting his valuable time with theatrics. Judge Winters looked at the binder, then back at Sienna, one eyebrow raised. She opened it to the first tab. I watched her eyes scan the photo of Conrad and Mirabelle. She flipped the page, then another. Her expression became grimmer with each section. She spent a long time on the financial charts from Arthur. She paused for a full minute on my affidavit about Zora. When she got to the tax fraud section, she took off her glasses and rubbed the bridge of her nose. The silence in the courtroom stretched for what felt like an eternity. You could hear the frantic, shallow breathing from Conrad's side of the table. The color had completely drained from his face. He was no longer looking at the judge. He was staring at me, his eyes wide with a dawning, horrified understanding. The little wife, the clueless mom, the woman he had underestimated at every turn, had just handed the judge a meticulously crafted weapon aimed directly at his heart. Finally, Judge Winters put her glasses back on. She closed the binder. She folded her hands and leaned forward, her gaze fixed entirely on my husband. Her voice, when she spoke, was quiet, but it carried the weight of absolute authority. "Mr. Davies," she began, "this binder contains serious allegations. Allegations of diverting marital funds, of tax fraud, and of coaching your minor child to deceive her mother. Let's start with the finances. Do you have the $73,000, as detailed by the forensic accountant, available to return to the marital estate immediately?" Conrad was speechless. He looked at Todd, but his lawyer seemed just as stunned. He opened and closed his mouth like a fish. "Your Honor, the money it's invested," he stammered. In crypto." The judge's expression didn't change. It was a mask of cold disappointment. "I see," she said. She then delivered a series of temporary orders that rained down on him like hammer blows. Effective immediately, temporary spousal support to Mrs. Davies in the amount of $3,000 per month. Thump. Full guideline child support for both minor children. Thump. Given the disturbing allegations in Section 4, visitation with the children will be supervised. No exceptions, pending a full custody evaluation. Thump. Mrs. Davies is granted sole and exclusive possession of the marital home. Mr. Davies is to have no contact with her except through counsel. Thump. And finally, she said, her eyes boring into him, "I am legally obligated to report suspected tax fraud. A copy of this binder will be forwarded to the Internal Revenue Service." It was a total, catastrophic annihilation. In the space of 5 minutes, everything he had built his fantasy life upon, the money, the freedom, the illusion of control, was vaporized. Outside the courtroom, the facade shattered completely. "You said this would be simple." Conrad roared at Todd, his voice echoing in the marble hallway. "You said she had nothing." I walked past them with Sienna, my head held high. I didn't look at him. I didn't say a word. My silence was my victory lap. It was louder and more damning than any insult I could have ever hurled. The fallout was swift and spectacular. The IRS did, in fact, open an investigation. His startup's board of investors asked him to step back while he sorted out his personal and legal issues. His former employer, notified by the court, filed a lawsuit against him for the $30,000 in fraudulent expenses. Mirabelle, seeing her sugar daddy's financial future evaporate, dumped him via a passive-aggressive Instagram story. Even his cycling group quietly removed him from their group chat. His mother, his own mother, called me, weeping, to apologize for how he had treated me and to ask if she could still see her granddaughters. I told her of course she could. She was on my team now. He lost the Pearl District apartment and moved into a sad, beige studio in Gresham. His world had shrunk from an expansive, aspirational horizon to 4 walls in a faceless suburb. Meanwhile, my world was opening up. The house felt lighter, brighter, without the oppressive weight of his ego filling every room. The girls and I had dance parties in the kitchen. I took on new, exciting clients. My creativity, so long suppressed, came roaring back to life. By the time we returned to court in January for the final hearing, Conrad was a ghost of his former self. He had a new, cheaper lawyer and no fight left in him. He agreed to every single one of our terms. I kept the house and all its equity. I got full custody. He had to reimburse the $73,000 and pay both spousal and child support for years to come. He got his bike, a mountain of legal bills, and a crashed crypto wallet. It's been 2 years since that day. Conrad is slowly, painfully, rebuilding. He has a regular job. He goes to therapy. He shows up for his supervised visits and is starting to be a real father. I hope, for my daughter's sake, that he succeeds. His choices are his problem now, not mine. As for me, I'm not just surviving, I'm thriving. I launched a design collective with 3 other women. I took my girls to the coast, to the mountains, to see the world. And I fell in love again. His name is Barrett. He's a kind, gentle man who listens when I talk and who thinks my obsession with fonts is endearing. He proposed last June, on a hike, with no audience but the trees and our daughters. Willa has demanded to be a flower unicorn at the wedding. And Zora, my wise, wonderful Zora, told him, "You better be good to my mom. She's a superhero." I'm not a superhero. I'm just a woman who was underestimated. Conrad spent 18 months trying to write me out of his story. He never imagined that I would be the one to write the ending. And my ending is a happy one. The best revenge isn't loud and ugly. It's a life lived beautifully, freely, and completely on your own terms. There's a special kind of power that comes from being underestimated. When someone writes you off, they give you the ultimate advantage, the element of surprise. Clara's story is a testament to quiet strength, meticulous preparation, and the undeniable truth that living well is, and always will be, the best revenge. What part of Clara's plan did you find the most satisfying? The binder? The IRS tip? Let me know your favorite moment of justice in the comments below. I love reading them. And if this story resonated with you, please consider subscribing for more tales of epic revenge and ultimate vindication. Thank you for listening, and remember, never mistake quiet for weak.